Okay, so when you are doing your Zentangle fall leaf, you can start with tracing your leaf. If you want to do a freehand drawing of a leaf, that's okay too, but make sure that your leaf is about this size on your paper. You need to be able to fit Zentangles inside of your leaf. So if it's really little, it's not going to have enough room for Zentangles. If it's way too big, you're not going to have enough room on the outsides for your fall colors. So try and have your leaf be about this size. Now, I want my Zentangle pattern to be done in a circular pattern, like the example. So what I could do is draw different circular sections with my pencil, freehand, or I could try using a protractor. This is kind of tricky to use. I'm going to try my best. So I have the protractor set, and I can see how big my circle is going to be. And I don't want it to be too big, but I don't want it to be too small. This looks pretty good. So this pointy part, I rest on my paper, and I keep it still. I always keep that pointed part still on my paper, and I start to draw a circle by moving my pencil slowly. So that starts my first circle. Now I want to go outwards. So I keep this pointy part right there. I'm going to do a little dot where that is, so I know that if I take this off, I know where to put the dot back. So that tiny dot is always where this pointed end is going to go. Now, to make the next circle, I'm going to make the protractor a little bit bigger by pulling it apart. So pulling it apart to make it bigger, and I do my next line. Okay, I'm gonna make it a little bigger. And do the same step over again. This can be frustrating to do. It's kind of tough to get the hang of. I had to try this multiple times before I recorded the video on the back of my paper to get the hang of it. So if you're having a difficult time, don't get frustrated. Just remember that it takes time and practice to get good at things. I can help you with this, or if someone at your table seems like they know how to do it, they could help you too. Okay, that's probably going to be the last circle. I'll just do it at the very tip of my leaves. Okay, maybe I want to do one more smaller circle in here too. I could always go back and add another layer. So I'm going to do one tiny little circle. Okay. So now that that hard part is done, I have my circles. I can go back and erase what's not in my leaf. And now we get to do Zentangles. So for each one of these sections, I'm going to do a different Zentangle. So you can start this in pencil. I'm going to go ahead and do Sharpie, but make sure that if you are starting in pencil, that you go back and go over it in Sharpie. A lot of these designs that we've seen have started with some sort of flower. So I'll do a quick demonstration on how you could do a Zentangle flower. I'm going to start with the center of my flower being black. And then I'm going to do a circle around that. Maybe some decorative lines. Remember with Zentangles, you have a lot of tiny details, but you don't want it to be so tiny that when you're using a Sharpie to outline, that you can't go over those details because they're so small. Because remember, the tip of your Sharpie is not as skinny as the tip of your pencil. So details are good, but make sure that you can go over those details with a Sharpie tip so they're not too tiny. So I'm just adding lots of details for the center of this beautiful flower. So now I'm going to do the big petals around it. And I'm looking at the example on the board to help give me inspiration for this flower. And you can even think back to other drawings that you've used flowers before in this class. Okay. Then I'm thinking, what other designs can I add to this? And sometimes you just have to take a pause and really think about it. Or hold it back, hold your drawing back far away. And take a look and see, what do you think your art needs? What can you do to improve your art? Okay, so I'm going to continue doing my Zentangles. I'll put this on fast mode. Okay, now it's time for our warm fall watercolors. So I'm going to use red, orange, and yellow. What I'm going to first do is get my paper a little wet in the areas where I want the paint to go. So I wet my brush a little bit in my water. And I'm using a smaller brush too. Big brushes will not work for this, because you need to be really, really, really careful that you are not getting any paint or water in your leaf. So I'm only making sure I'm getting the areas wet that I want to have watercolor on them. So go slowly and carefully. Okay, now I'm going to start with my color. Let's start with yellow first, since yellow is the lightest. And I'm going to start kind of adding these shapes that go from my leaf. So I'm using my brush, a little bit of water, and then I'm starting at my leaf and going outwards to make it seem like this color is kind of expanding out of my Zentangle art. And start with using probably less paint, because remember, you can always go back and add more if you want more. But once you have painted on your project, you can't really get that paint off once it's already on there. So make sure you start small, and then you can always add more as you go. I'm going to go around my whole leaf with yellow, and I'm making sure that I leave some white spaces too, so I can layer on my orange and red. So leaving some white to get that pure orange and pure red. Okay, next I'll do orange and I'll do red. I'll put this on fast mode so you can see how it turns out.